I'm Amanda, and I'm a quantum healer and past life regressionist. And in this video, I'm going to share some really interesting stories about some clients I've had, as well as my own personal story around some chronic things that we may have carried our entire lives that might actually have come through from a past life. So this doesn't always happen. I want to start by saying that sometimes we might have, some sort of condition or some sort of fear, something about us that seems to have been with us for a really long time. But sometimes the root cause of those things might be from our childhood. Maybe it's from a traumatic experience as a child. Maybe it's from your life circumstances from when you were really young. So I want to caveat this video by saying not everything comes from our past lives. Sometimes it really is stuff that you need to work through from your current lifetime. But having said that, it does sometimes come from your past life. And I think the most telling thing is when it's a condition that has been with you ever since you can remember, maybe ever since you were born. And it could either be from a past life that you brought forward, or it could be some sort of karmic reason, like something you did in a past life. And because you did that thing in the past life, you decided to sort of work through that karma in this current lifetime. So let me share some examples. I had a client who had chronic back pain. She had had this pain in her lower back her entire life, ever since she could remember, and she had no idea where it was from. So we did a past life regression through a QHHT session, and we saw her in this sailor lifetime. So she was this young boy, he was a sailor, and he lived almost his entire life working on boats. We're going through this lifetime, and I have no idea why her higher self is showing her this life. I almost never do, honestly, until the end. But we're going through this whole life, and it seems like a pretty normal life where she's living on the boat, doing her thing. And we get to the very end of the life, and he's not very old at the end of the lifetime. I think the sailor boy is like maybe 20s, 30s. But at the very end of his life, we see him fall off the boat into the water, and on his way down into the water, he hits his back on the railing of the boat right before he dies. And that was the source of her back pain in this current lifetime. It was just from hitting the railing on her way down into the water, and she just brought that pain forward into this lifetime. And when we find that something like that is from a previous life where it's just not really an important, emotional, energetic thing for them to continue carrying through with them, those are the easiest pains and ailments to clear. So when we found out where her back pain was coming from, we were able to clear it immediately, and she was able to move forward in her life without that pain anymore. Another story I had another client who has struggled with a irrational fear of snakes his entire life. For no reason. He's just more afraid of snakes than the average person. And so we did a little digging. We went through a past life, and we saw that when he was a little boy in a previous lifetime, he was suddenly killed by a snake. We saw him as just a little kid in a garden. He was just playing. And the interesting thing about that lifetime is that his soul had already decided that that was going to be a short lifetime. That was kind of a previously agreed upon thing, where his soul contract was very short, and he was like, I'm just going to come in and out. I'm going to teach my parents something really important, and then I'm going to leave. So, the higher plan was actually to leave at that time, but it doesn't change the fact that as a human, he picked up some fear from the experience. So he was a little boy in the garden, and he went, over to reach for a toy that was in a bush or something, and a snake just snapped out at him and bit him. And that's how he died. He was poisoned, and he just died from the bite. And the interesting thing is that he carried that fear of snakes through into this lifetime. And so when we were, again, able to find out where that fear came from, we were able to clear it immediately. And the interesting thing about these types of clearings is that it's really important that you, as the client, also believe that the thing is being cleared. If you don't believe that it's being cleared, if you keep on telling yourself that you're still afraid of snakes or that your back pain is still there, it's gonna stay there because you're gonna manifest it staying with you. You're gonna hold on to that energy. So I think for that client with the fear of snakes, He has mostly let it go, but there's still a little bit of normal human fear of snakes. You know, I think he now has a pretty normal, healthy, we'll say a healthy reverence for their danger, but he's no longer irrationally afraid of them. And the third example I want to share is my own personal example. I have lived my entire life being really afraid of fire. And I think I'm more afraid of fire than the normal person, where I couldn't even light a lighter myself. I used to be so afraid of, using a small little lighter. I was terrified of using matches. Like if I was holding a match that was on fire, the flame would be way too close to my hand for my own comfort. And pretty early on in my spiritual journey, I was working with an energy healer, and she helped me uncover that I had been a witch in a previous lifetime, and I had been burnt at the stake. And I find that this is actually a very common past life for a lot of my fellow witches out there. But, so comment if you've also been a witch that has been burnt at the stake. But yeah, that for me actually explains so much in my life about why I've always been so afraid of fire. I had literally been burnt to death. And when we found out that I had had that previous experience, we were again able to clear that energy away from me, away from my field. I call it past life residue. We were able to clear that residue away. And I am no longer irrationally afraid of fire. I light matches all the time. I find fire extremely fascinating. I still really don't want to be burnt to death. I hope that that never happens to me, but I would say that I now have a very normal, healthy respect for fire. So those are just a few fun little stories. There's so much more to share. But if you've had some sort of chronic condition, chronic fear, or something that's been with you ever since you can remember, there's a chance that it could be past life residue. And we can find out through a quantum healing or QHHT session. So I hope you found that interesting. My name is Amanda, and I offer both virtual and in-person sessions. So check out my website if you're interested in working with me, and I will see you in the next video.